Hey, what's up everybody? I am in the middle of installing a Scopamia swivel seat in my Ram ProMaster camper van conversion. And although there is a bajillion videos on YouTube showing you how to actually do this, there aren't really many in my very brief searching specific to the Scopamia. And I'm thinking partially, I'm assuming now, I'm thinking partially that's due to the fact of how expensive these are. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, these are probably the most expensive swivel seats that you can get. And again, on an assumption, I believe partially that's due to the fact of their profile. They are very low profile compared to a lot of other swivels out there. And I know this from personal experience because I bought the eBay brand and that raised my seat way too far for me. I'm 5'11", and with the standard seat, height that I got out of that, it actually was kind of dangerous, if I'm honest. It put my line of sight pretty much into the visor, and if I were to get into an accident, there's a pretty big chance that my head would hit that visor and cause more damage than the wreck itself. So I sent those back, and then after some time of debating whether or not I wanted swivel seats, I got the Scopamias. And since I didn't find a lot of information online about it, and the directions I did find on their website were in French, I thought I'd just go ahead and post a really quick video, very unedited, just how I installed it, because the things that I did find about this seat was the height or profile was so low that there were obstructions on the Ram ProMaster that require that you use these spacers they provide. So these would go in between the seat and the seat base to raise up this platform high enough to make it past any obstructions here below the seat. And someone had pointed out that really the only obstruction that you get is the seat belt bracket here, this little silver guy. So that guy, once the seat, let me just position myself here. Hey, like I said, this is unedited, all right, so bear with me. Whenever the seat is sitting on top of this guy, the swivel is going to be in between here, and so whenever this swivels, it's going to catch. I'm sorry, I'm pointing at the wrong thing. Whenever this swivels, it's going to catch. You can see this is where the swivel would be, and then if you turn this around, it's below the actual swivel point. So this needs to be cut off. And as far as I understand, that's the only obstruction that would require you to use these spacers. So I'm not going to show anything about how to remove the seat. That's universal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and install the swivel base and make that adjustment, aka cut, and then show you the end result. And hopefully it is indeed that simple. So we'll see. So pause this install to share something that was very unexpected. Had some grease that was on here. I wanted to clean it off, so I got some denatured alcohol, things that you use to clean windows and stuff with, and wipe this down, and the paint is coming off. And now it actually smells like paint in here. That was very unexpected. I mean, I feel like I could probably strip this down to bare metal if I kept rubbing it. So like the sticker got black rubbed all over it, which is very peculiar. That was unexpected. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but FYI, don't clean it with denatured alcohol if that's your intention. Okay, here's another observation. Compared to the other swivel base that I got, this actually is very nice and smooth and very free-flowing. But what's unexpected is that there's no other catches here. It has a positive stop to keep you from, I guess, swinging it completely around in 360 degrees, but the other swivel seat, the cheap eBay one, it actually had a positive lock, like it would lock in place, and then you'd have to release the handle and then be able to swing it back around. All right, so here we go. I've only got it just sitting up here, but you can see that little silver bracket there, that's what's actually hitting the swivel stand itself. But depending on my focus here, you can see that's the only thing. here, you know, is pretty clear. So I don't need the spacers, which is fantastic, because that means that my seat has lifted by, I think it's 1 inch or so, whereas other seats are anywhere from 1.75 inches to maybe even 2 inches. So this is kind of as good as it gets, unless I want to invest in a lower seat bracket. They sell shorter ones, or you can get someone to modify and shorten it for you, which just seems like a total nightmare. And if I were to get the lower bracket, that's as expensive as the swivel itself. So this would cost me twice as much just to be able to turn my seats around. So this is kind of, in my world, as good as it gets. All I gotta do is cut that bracket, silver bracket there, and we're good to go. Not the cleanest of cuts, but that don't matter. It is now shorter than that little black piece that was hanging out. So I guess that's actually part of the seat bracket, but yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, shorter. So I think the next problem is gonna be is the plastic skirting that goes across here. It probably needs to be trimmed a little bit. I think I remember someone mentioning that they had to trim theirs. So I'm gonna go super slow here and go ahead and put it back together and set it on that swivel and turn it and see if the plastic hits. So that way I can cut off just the most minimum amount if I need to cut. Hopefully I don't need to cut. Quick tip. In this chair swivel kit, they give you 2 bolts. One is a longer one is a shorter one. Originally, I put the shorter bolts on the swivel to the seat base, and the longer bolts I put from the seat base to the seat, or I should say the swivel to the seat. And I found that trying to move the seat forward, it was hitting those bolts. They were too long. So I swapped them around. So the long bolts go from the swivel to the seat base, and the short bolts go from the swivel to the chair base, the bottom of the chair. And now I got full range of motion. So that's cool. All right, I'm gonna try and capture this as clearly as I can. I'm probably gonna fail because I have to use only one hand. But I wanted to show the difference between the unmodified driver's side and passenger side in terms of height. So I'm gonna try and reference the same bracket on both as best that I can. You know, this is not, this isn't hardcore science. This is just generalism. So let's call that 11 3/4. You can see that bracket right below there, right below the 12-inch line. All right, same bracket over here. Is up. Let me try going up. There we go. So that same bracket is, you know, about 12 3/4, so about 1 inch in height. Aside from having to cut the bracket, it was pretty easy. Let me zoom out here. The only thing that I'm a little worried about is as I move this, there's a squeaking and a squawking, and I'm quite certain it's the actual pivot point in the middle of the seat. Might be able to maybe add some more oil or something. I don't know how noticeable that's gonna be, you know, when someone's sitting in it and going down a bumpy road. Hopefully that's not a problem. I haven't heard any other complaints about that, so we'll see. Well, here's the results. Got the side cover back on, and unfortunately, it just barely doesn't fit. I mean, to the point that I could take and lift up this plastic and it would swivel. So that goes to show you how tight it is, or how close it is to actually working. But if I want this to be smooth, I'm gonna have to trim just the bottom part of that seatbelt cover, which is a bit of a bummer, but you know, it's not too difficult. Work in progress. Got a Dremel here and probably a very inappropriate cutting wheel here, but it works. It sort of melts the plastic just as much as it cuts it, but After swinging the chair a few times, I could kind of see where it was rubbing. And you can see there on the marks on the plastic. And just kind of guesstimated on how much I needed to cut off. And now I'm just going to take a file to the melted plastic to kind of round that over and make it look a little bit cleaner. So let's see what that looks like. There we go. Took actually a wood chisel to the edge to clean off all that plastic, and then filed it down, and then got a heat gun and kind of melted the plastic a little bit to get it to kind of blend back in. So for this to be the cut part, it looks relatively factory. There's a little where the cutting wheel got away from me just a little bit there, but since that's going to be like beside the seat, underneath the seat belt and whatnot, I mean, I don't think that's going to be very noticeable. So let's see if I cut off enough material for it to fit. All right, so long story short, it works. I did have to make one more cut here at the back because it was trying to catch on this whenever it would swivel around. But otherwise, we have clearance. Yay! You know, as with most things, the second time went a lot better. So this is with it cut. So, you know, comparatively cleaner. But I did try and take off a minimal amount of material here. And so hopefully it will still swivel. So we'll see. All right, so now it's time to talk about what I do like about this. As I mentioned before, I've had some eBay swivel seats that were probably a little bit heavier than these, but the height on them was no exaggeration. It probably added that much height, you know, about 2 inches of height. And, you know, I'm 5'11", so that put my view pretty much into the visor here at the top, you know, above the driver. So they didn't work. So these, you know, now that we've got some better light, you can see visually they're almost identical. I mean, now the passenger seat's pushed forward so I could swivel, but you can see that the height there is very comparable, if not exactly the same, which is great. I think partially due to the fact that these are 6-way adjustable seats, so I can lower the seat. I'm sure that helps. But on to what I like about these. One is the handle to swivel is on the side. So it's very easy to reach and to be able to do the swivel. There we go. And what else I like is that once it's released, it's released. You can spin these guys back and forth and they never lock in this rear position. With the other swivel seat that I had, they would lock whenever they got to the rear position again. And because they were the cheaper brand, it was the exact same seat base for both the driver and the passenger. So the handle on the driver's side would swivel with the seat. So when it locked in the back, you could hit the handle, unlock it, and swing it back. But since it was upside down on the passenger side, the handle stayed in the front. And by the way, the handle was in the front, not on the side. And so whenever you swivel this and it locked, then you had to reach around the back of the seat to unlock it and then swivel it back again. So that was a terrible design. They should have made special bases for each side, passenger and the driver. So the swivel action's super easy, super smooth. You know, as it gets broken in, it'll be easier to lock and unlock. But you know, I just can't get over how little height that adds. That's like such a big deal to me because I really didn't think swivel seats were going to be possible. And just like that, we have entered the Swivel Seat Van Club. Woohoo! Gold star. So I really think in all, it's a minimal amount of effort to get a swivel seat solution that doesn't put you in the stratosphere. Yes, it's expensive, and no, it's not just a straight bolt-on, but all I had to do was take an angle grinder and cut one bracket, and then a Dremel to just trim the plastic at the bottom of the seatbelt cover, and boom, I've got possibly the lowest seat swivel seat solution on the market today. So hopefully that helps somebody and helps them decide what swivel seat they want to buy. And if you consider subscribing, at some point I will make a video about my build, which is still in progress, as you can see. But I have some interesting information that I'd want to share that I thought would be kind of funny. Like how many trips to Lowe's it took me to complete this, how many Amazon orders it took, you know, how much money it was, just kind of fun things. And of course my total time, because I am a nerd, and I tracked everything from hours of work to every dollar spent to where I spent those dollars. There's a lot more to go, so the video will be coming whenever the van's done, which should be in not too long from now. I still gotta make a permanent table, decide if I want that table solution to stay, build all this cabinetry, this countertop, electrical outlet for induction cooking, but otherwise it's mostly done, and just finish work from here, you know, little finish work stuff. So consider subscribing to get all those and anything else that I upload. So thanks. It's been a couple months since I've installed these swivel seats, and I wanted to follow up now that I've actually used them and solved one of the major issues I was concerned with on these specific seats. I had mentioned in one of the videos, if not a few of them, depending on how I edit this, I haven't gone back and rewatched any of them yet, that they creaked and squeaked whenever they moved around, and that was going to be a big problem for me because I wanted to keep cabin noise to a minimum while driving around. I went on a spring trip with my son where we went through several states. I can't remember how long we drove or how far, and you know, they were a pretty persistent noise in the van, so it was to the point that I almost wanted to remove them. So when I got back home, I did some more research, and a lot of people were talking about greasing various points underneath the seat, and I reached out to the manufacturer, and that was something they recommended as well. So I did do that, and since doing that, there's no more squeaking and creaking and everything on any of the seats, and it's been a couple months now that that's been done, and they still don't squeak. So I think that's a permanent solution. Maybe it's something that needs some care and feeding over time as the grease maybe wears down or evaporates, dries out, or whatever. You may need to re-add it, but I'll show you real quick some of the main points that I greased, and hopefully that'll help somebody else with the same problem. All right, I'm gonna try and get this in here. One of the things that really benefited in greasing as well is it allowing that latch mechanism to freely let go of the seat, whereas before it was binding and wouldn't let go without a little bit of force. So now it's much smoother, and I don't know how easily it is gonna be to see all these grease points. Bear with me while I try and figure this out. The beauty of editing. I think if I here, bring it all the way around, there we go. So you can see there's a substantial amount of grease here on the actual latching mechanism, and that point is something that I greased heavily, and it made a difference, as well as let's see if I can get it around here. See those little nubs right there? That guy right there, oh look, grease on my finger. That's how much I greased it. Those little nubs, I followed all of those around as well, because that's something that kind of helps keep the pedestal stable as it swivels around. Those little mushroom heads there, it has opposing ones on the top of the seat, or the plate as well. You can see it right there. So I greased all those as well, and that's all it took. Once they were greased, it was much quieter and doesn't squeak and squawk when I drive, and latching it is a lot easier. So hope that helps.